Hey everyone. That's the end. 7 hours of money, sex, and God. I feel so full. I hope you do too. The replays will be available on my page. So go in, get messy with it, get dirty with it. Before we end tonight, thank you guys so much for being with me. And before we end, I wanted to begin by painting a picture for you. I want you to imagine yourself on a beach, the waves crashing, the sun beating down on your naked body. You're lying there, covered in gold jewels, feeling complete bliss, peace, ecstatic, sensual energy moving through your body, and a feeling of knowingness, a feeling of coming home to your brilliance just trickles through every cell of your being and radiates outward to touch the world and shift the planet on a global scale. An inner knowingness that this work, this play, isn't about you. It's about all of us. I want you to know that you can have it all. You can have everything that you desire because everything that you desire is already inside of you. You already have it. And this journey of sexual awakening and rediscovering ourselves that we've been talking about all night is simply finding the places in you that already know pleasure, that already know satisfaction and fulfillment, that already know this true energy in your being. So I'm Genevieve Rudolph, and I'm an erotic embodiment coach, which means that I go into the body. We go into the body where truth lies, out of the mind. In the body, we find all the places that unlock these magical moments for you so that you can start to live your life in this state of peace and bliss. And I've had the pleasure of working with Jaya, who is brilliant. She's created a framework for how to feed ourselves in this way, how to really find that fulfillment in our bodies. And she's been bringing this work to daytime television. She's been on CNN. She's worked with Tony Robbins, Mama Gina. And I've had the pleasure of sharing the stage with her. Had the pleasure of playing alongside Anadea Judith, who is the author of Eastern Body, Western Mind. She's the Western psychologist of like chakra psychology. So she's bridging it here. And that's where a lot of my embodiment work comes in. I've also had the pleasure of playing in the world of BDSM and being trained at a top dungeon in New York City as a professional dominatrix. And this work has enabled me to have a sense of shamanism about the way that I guide sexual energy, that we go deep into dark energy, and we can play in all realms in order to bring light. And I also get to nowadays live in this feeling that I was describing. And since getting this feeling in my body, and not just a feeling, but like a knowingness and a beingness, the only thing I want, the only desire that I have is simply for everyone on the planet to have this feeling. Like, that's it. But it wasn't always this way for me. And if you're watching and it's not this way for you, I want you to hear that you're in a perfect place. I used to walk around my world tense and constricted and scared. I lived in fear. I was constantly seeking and searching for something to bring me back to some semblance of peace or calm. I had the experience of having a lot of sexual violations in my life, and those violations had me completely constrict my energy to the point that I was terrified of men. I wouldn't even hug them or talk to them. It was only until this really recently, the past few years, that I've been able to like hug men, and now love them. So, I remember things like walking down the street and constantly in my mind thinking, am I safe right now? And actually like playing out the possibilities of like being raped and murdered on the side of the street, or constantly operating from this place of like in my mind of, how do I fix this? How do I shut this off? And it was, and I'll tell you what it was in a second, because it's kind of like a hint. What was happening was that everything that was a mirror of my light, I pushed away, right? All my relationships, all my connections, all the love in the world, because my nervous system didn't know how to open up and receive any of it. And it's been through that unfolding and that opening of my nervous system that I can have it all, right? That I can let love in, that I can have these connections with you guys and everyone else here, that I can love myself fully, that I can find that divine connection that I didn't know was possible, that I can release into orgasmic bliss, and that I can feel safe in my body and let money and business grow with ease and grace, which is kind of what we talked about today. We talked about all those things today. And it was, for me, the big trick, right, was deregulating my nervous system, and deconditioning it from how it was conditioned. I was working with a healer last week who said that it's basically like you grow up and you have like a computer that you're given when you're born, right? And that's your body. And then over time, what happens is our hardware starts to up level, right? We start to get like great, like, Word 97, Word 98, like we're downloading new things. But the computer itself hasn't actually upgraded. And so what was happening to me was I was in all of these really deep personal development, self-development programs, like deep stuff, like, yeah. And I was constantly just buying the next one, buying the next one, buying the next one, and doing like deep therapy work of all sorts of therapies, and just seeking, right? And I was like really going into my business because I thought like, okay, if I make a certain amount of money, then I'll find a certain sense of happiness, and just trying to make everything around me really perfect in order to find this peace in me. And I remember one day sitting there. I had just built my first business up to 6 figures. I was in a great relationship. I had my beautiful son, right? And it was like just around the holidays where everything is cheery. And it was around my birthday too, because I'm a March baby. And I remember for weeks just sitting there inside of my body thinking, what's missing? Like, why I did all of this and why am I unhappy? Right? Because one of the things about having trauma is that our nervous systems become like very fight or flighty. And so we can accomplish a hell of a lot of stuff, right? That's what I did. And then I was really confused and lost, and I felt really misunderstood, and like the world, like I couldn't figure out how to be in the world. I couldn't figure out how to accept myself or how to love myself, because my nervous system wasn't allowing for any of that. Like there was no breath and spaciousness in my body. And though I was having sex, right, I was having kind of disembodied sex, like unconscious sex, and that sex was happening to me, right? Sex was very, very much happening to me. And then it would just kind of happen, and then we were just done. And then we'd move on. So it was almost like this detachment, this disconnection. And this work, the work that I now am completely invested in, this work that I believe can bring light to every single trauma out there, bring light to any sense of disembodiment or detachment with self. This work came in, and I am, free. So how do we get there? How do I get there? How do we get there? There's 3 tools I want to teach you in the next, I'm looking at the time, half hour, 15 minutes. First thing I started doing was getting intimate with my body. And you heard Emily Oram talk about this tonight. So the first thing I started doing was listening to her. So I would just close my eyes. And when I first started this practice, I couldn't even put my hands on my body because my nervous system was so hypervigilant that that felt unsafe and uncomfortable. And so it was just a simple act of setting a timer for 5 minutes and closing my eyes and just bringing my awareness inward. I was meditating. I've been meditating for 10 years, but my awareness in my meditation was outward into outer consciousness. And this was just sitting in my body for 5 minutes. And it was hard and it was painful and I wanted to run. Right. And then over time, that practice has become a beautiful practice of feeding my body. So I'll do a quick demo to show you what it looks like, and then give you your first tool, and then we'll move to the next 2 tools. So here's what self-intimacy would look like for me. And just to give you a little bit of what's happening in my body, I put my hands here, and then I felt a feeling of sadness or grief. And so rather than pulling away from it, I'm leaning in. And that shaking is energy moving. Bring breath in a lot, movement. Sometimes I'll turn on music. And over time, you get really aware of where your hands want to be. So you just follow it. And how much pressure, like this one, my right hand is really digging in and my left hand is soft and sweet. And I'm just listening and I'm noticing visuals and thoughts, sensations. The second I start to go into my head, I know I'm not in my body. I just did it and I brushed my fingertips here. And so I'm just going to go right back into my body. Just remind myself gently. Sometimes I need stillness. Yeah. So you continue that for 20, 30 minutes and you're having multiple orgasms by the time you're done. If you've, been on that journey of unraveling your nervous system. And it can happen like that, right? If someone's guiding you, someone who's been there, someone who's done it. So that's tool 1. Tool 2 is discovering your blueprint. This is huge. The erotic blueprints by Jaya were a huge game changer for me, because when I first met Jaya, I was the kinky blueprint, and I didn't understand myself because kink people don't like to talk about. The kinky blueprint is awesome because it can play in fantasy really beautifully. So the kinky blueprint doesn't even need to be touched, right? There's like this hardwired towards sexual ecstasy and pleasure. We know what it is. We're going right there, right? There's no like, it's just what it is. The shame around the kinky blueprint is the shadow. So there's a piece of shame there that I had to heal, that I didn't realize I had to heal, because I didn't even realize that this is what was going on. And then in healing the shame, right, by checking in, I healed it through my body, right? The work I do with clients is in the body. The shame releases, and then we expand, right? So that's the kinky. And then there's the energetic blueprint. And if you're on replay watching this, you can let me know which blueprint you think you are. The energetic blueprint, which is what I am now, they are awesome because they can have full body orgasms without being touched. That's their superpower. And their shadow is that they get overwhelmed, right? They get really spinny and they kind of can move out of their body and dissociate. A lot of energetics have had trauma in their past. And I don't know chicken or the egg, right? But it just kind of comes up, and dissociation is a pretty real thing for them. And so now that I know that I'm an energetic, I know how I can move into my body and work with my own nervous system. And there's a sensual superpower is that they're going to know how to set everything up, right? So for the 5 senses. So they're going to have like the deliciousness of their sensuality very clear. They're going to have the lights perfect and the music beautiful, and have like the delicacy and the sweetness of sexuality when they're in their flow. And that's their superpower. You can tell when you're with the sensual because they smell delicious and they're wearing beautiful clothes and everything's cozy and you just want to like snuggle into them. That's essential. Their shadow is that they can get stuck in their head. And it's important for us to know this, right? If you're sensual and you're watching, it's important for you to know this, because a lot of sensuals don't realize they do that. And then there are tools, right, for the nervous system to drop down into the body and not keep flying into the head, into the thought process. And I mentioned kinky already, and then there's sexuals. The sexuals are their superpowers. They can have sex all day, all night. They can often have multiple orgasms. They're pretty like, yeah, they're like sex goddesses, right? They're just going all day. The shadow of the sexual is that they miss the journey, right? And that's where the healing work is on really devouring the sweetness of the journey. And then there's the shapeshifters, which are my faves. And the shapeshifters love all of it and get turned on by all of it, often all at once. Their superpower is that they are like the most amazing instruments to play sexually. They're highly sexually sophisticated. And their shadow is that they can get stuck in feeling that they're too much, right? Like their desires are too much. Like, who's going to be with me for 10 hours and have 10 hands on me? Like, how will that be done? And then they just kind of like close or they take on other people's desires and then just are dissatisfied. And so that's them. And so learning the blueprints, really knowing it, not just mentally, like I'm sure watching me, you're thinking, oh, I might be that, or I might be that, or I'm definitely not that, or my partner's that, but feeling it in your body, knowing in your body, like what your body's blueprint is, what the nervous system function is in your body, is going to allow you the tools to start to deregulate your nervous system. So you'll start to feed yourself on your own. We talked a lot about sovereignty tonight. You'll start to become sexually sovereign so that you can feed yourself up to a level of radiance and a level of receiving and allowance that's going to let all the goodness pour into your body. So the abundance, the orgasms, the joy, right? The not needing anyone else, but choosing them, which we talked about with Joshua just now. This is the discovery of the blueprints allows for this to happen, and it happens inside the body, somatically. It's one of the things I do with my clients. And then the third tool The third tool that we do to deregulate the nervous system, which we've talked about as well tonight, but just to give you like bullet points, is to bring darkness into light. So I've mentioned my journey in kink, my journey in BDSM, my journey in reclaiming my darkness. And a tool to do this is to start to listen to the darkness. So I want you to start, if you're watching, I want you to start keeping a journal where you just let the darkness speak. Right? So you listen to all the shame spirals, or the I'm too much, or I'm not enough, or let's see, what would be some other brilliant shadows. This is overwhelming. I'm overwhelmed. That's the one I get now as an energetic. That's a fun one. We start to give voice to that place. And then what happens is we expand. In doing that, we're expanding our capacity for energy, for holding energy in our body. And the more we do that, the increase of sexual energy in our body. I was talking about this with Michael tonight, Michael Author. We have this increase of energy in our body, of sexual energy, and then we have creative energy. And then when we have creative energy, our business starts to thrive. And then when our business starts to thrive, money comes in. And then when all of that happens, then we get our partner, and then we lose 15 years all of a sudden, and right? Like shit just starts happening because our nervous system is now fully fed. And we can walk around no longer seeking, but simply magnetizing everything that we need to come towards us. Not even need, everything that we want, that the universe wants to give us, right? And there's a surrender in that space. When we really bring our darkness into the light, there's a surrender into trusting that we're held, that it's okay, that all of those thoughts and feelings and emotions are totally allowed and accepted and loved. And it's awesome. It's so good. So I talked to you a little bit about my journey. I talked to you a little bit about the tools you can use. So a self-intimacy practice, getting intimate with your body, not your mind, right? Discovering your blueprint inside of your body, like in your being. Or if you're like psychological kinky and you're like the fantasy play, then in the fantasy, but like being in the experience of it. And bringing the darkness to the light, really owning all of the shadow places and bringing them into the light. So those are your 3 tools that you can start doing. And what often happens now is people have these tools, people watch this Money, Sex, and God marathon, they've got all these ideas, things are conceptual, and then they go away, and then, okay, right? Nothing happens from there. And so here's the point at which I wanted to extend an offer to you. And I'm feeling into which one I want to do. And I'm feeling into this one instead. So my offering is to connect with you. So I would love, so normally to speak with me for an hour, I charge $500. And I do that because it's an hour and because I'm really in with you. I'm really committed to the work. I'm really in with you. And the call, the hour is finding out where you want to go. Right? So if you can have it all, what would you have? Right? What would it look like? Would it be on the beach with the sand, with the jewels? Would it be something else? Getting really clear. And then finding out exactly what's stopping you. What's the shadow? Is it I'm too much? Is it I'm out of my head? I'm not in my body? Like what are the anchors there? And then really developing a plan with you that feels really easy. Sexual awakening is about easy wins. We're not pushing with sex. We're not. With a lot of things like personal development stuff we do, we don't with sexual energy. We just feed it like little chocolate pieces at a time. So you're going to get those little like breadcrumbs to go. And then we can talk about working together more long term. I only take a few clients because, like I said, I'm leaned in. I'm really committed. I'm really invested to it. So if that is something that you are feeling in your body and you're feeling in your energy, please reach out. We currently have 2 spots available that should usually fill up within a week. So get in there. I'm going to post the link on here so that you guys can come on in and chat with me. And oh, it's complimentary for you. I don't know if I said that. It's normally $500. It's complimentary for everyone who watched Money, Sex, and God or who's watching this. This totally works. And I will post the link in the comments when we end. And remember, there's only 2 spots. So if there's a feeling of fear, cool, let's lean into it. Let's get on a call together and play with it, right? If there's a feeling of I don't know, let me help you get to a fuck yes or a hell no. Let's get on a call and get there. All right, so go ahead and close your eyes. And I want you to imagine yourself back on the beach, the ocean, the sun beaming down, the golden jewels lying on your naked body. And begin to feel your orgasmic pleasure beginning at the base, at your genitals. And as this energy rises through your body, begin to feel this deep letting go, this possibility of expansion that maybe your body doesn't know yet. But the trick is it already does know. It's a matter of reminding it. So just play with me here and begin to feel an expansion. Feel what's possible for you. Feel that you can truly have it all. I love you guys. Thank you for being here and being on. I'll post the link. Thank you for everyone who is on Money, Sex, and God, and all your brilliance and all your gifts. Here's to a pleasurable, delicious, abundant evening. Ciao.